Hare Krishna. So this will be my first content aimed at devotees in a long time. If you follow me at all, you probably know I run a YouTube channel focused on outreach, on spreading, articulating Chaitanya Vaishnava Siddhanta, bring it into the modern philosophical discussions where I think our ideas have a lot to say, but I haven't been doing a lot of content aimed at devotees. And I'm thinking to start doing that primarily because I think it's good for my own Krishna consciousness to delve into our philosophy. So a key part of me being able to do this is low effort. So I do a lot of driving and I recorded this while I'm driving. I'm trying to get good sound quality. I've got a little mic hooked up and the phone I've got at the moment has quite a good quality front camera. So even though there's a lot of backlit from the sun being everywhere, the image quality is still all right. And yeah, I'm going to get straight into this video. This video, I talk about the fall of the Jiva controversy, my thoughts on that. And maybe the next one I do will be how I came to Krishna consciousness. Today, I want to talk about the fall of the Jiva controversy. My main comments on the fall of the Jiva controversy are that I don't understand what the big deal is. So Prabhupada said essentially the same thing. He said that he gave an analogy to if someone gets shot or if you get shot, you don't hang around trying to figure out where the bullet came from. You get the hell out of there and get to the hospital. Similarly, we are here in this material world and our main business is to get out of here. So there's no use in us troubling ourselves over how it was we got here. And I tend to agree with that sentiment. But I think that answer might be unsatisfying for some people. So I'll give some further thoughts that I think show how actually it is an irrelevant controversy. So we can talk about it as a two-horned dilemma. A two-horned dilemma means you're damned if you do or damned if you don't. So on the one hand, if it is the case that we fell from the spiritual world, then there's one problem. And if it's the case that we were never in the spiritual world, there's another problem. Now, what are these two problems? So if we were in the spiritual world and left, the problem is, how is it possible that we could be so stupid, like it says in Bhagavad Gita, that once having attained to my eternal abode, souls never leave? And, you know, the typical new bhakta asking the question of, well, if we were there originally and we left, how did we get here? The answer would be, oh, well, it means once having fallen and come back again, you'll never leave. You know, it's like once burned, twice shy. So that's there. That's the horn on the one side, the typical objection you get. But then you have the other problem, which is, so the reason people give of why we need the fall to have fallen to make philosophical sense is if we never experienced the spiritual world, then we never made a choice between the material world and the spiritual world. So to preserve Krishna's justice, mercy, compassion, fairness, we need it to be the case that we made a choice. And in order for us to have made a choice, we need to have experience of the things we're choosing between. So now some comments of how I think both of these objections don't stand, and whether we fell or whether we were never there in the first place. In either case, the philosophical concerns are satisfied. So how I see it is, the real philosophical concern is that it's my fault that I'm here, that I've suffered so much. So every Jiva who's not in the spiritual world right now is here due to some ignorance, some poor choice on their part, and not due to Krishna lacking in mercy and compassion. And so on our journey in Krishna consciousness, from time to time we're chanting in kirtan or japa, or listening to kirtan, or listening to a class, and we get this strong experience that I'm the one who's at fault, and Krishna is always looking out for my best interest. Krishna's just been waiting for me to turn around and come back to him. That it's my fault, and Krishna's full of all good qualities. This is something that's all throughout Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta, and it's something we can experience directly in our hearts without needing to be very spiritually advanced. So whatever interpretation of the scripture we have, we need to keep consistent with that point, those 2 points. That it's my fault, and that Krishna's full of good qualities. I guess there's other concerns. I've heard Urmila talking about that. One other thing that comes into these discussions is whether bhakti is innate or whether it's something that's acquired. I don't have much to say about that just now. I'm just talking about this point of preserving God's mercy and retaining the fact that we're the ones who made a mistake, and it's not God's unfairness. So the way that's preserved in both views is, if I was in the spiritual world and I left, then yeah, definitely I made a choice. You could ask, well, how could you have made such a dumb choice? But ignorance happens. We can become illusioned and mistaken and make a poor choice. I think I was hearing Urmila talk about this yesterday. I can't remember all the details of the point. This is why I think I need to start speaking Krishna Katha more regularly, because it will help me ponder the philosophy more. And then on the other side, how it's the case that even if we were never in the spiritual world, we still made a choice. So yeah, this is a highly objectionable position according to many leaders in Krishna consciousness society. So yeah, this idea that we came from the Tatastha region, so we were, I don't. One reason why I don't find this debate interesting is because I just think it's beyond the ability of our tiny minds to comprehend the relevant issues. So it's like 4-year-olds trying to understand the relationship between their parents. Like 4-year-olds just can't understand our marital relationship because their minds are just not developed to a stage where they can comprehend those things. So similarly, I think we are not capable of comprehending infinities, and so that when we talk about where the soul came from before being in the spiritual world, we're talking about infinities, and I think these things we just can't comprehend. I can comprehend little things like I've made a mistake in turning away from God, and now I can turn back to God, now God's giving me his mercy, the devotees are giving me mercy. These things I can understand, but when you start talking about infinities of how I got here in the first place, I think it's beyond my ability to comprehend. What was the point I was just making about how, there's this idea that we started in the Tatastha region. The objection to this is there is no, Tatastha is not a place. Tatastha is a potency. Tatastha means the marginal potency. It's like the beach is a Tatastha. Sometimes it's covered by the ocean and sometimes it's not. This is an analogy that's given to describe souls. Sometimes we're absorbed in the spiritual energy and sometimes we're absorbed in the material energy. But ultimately the nature of the soul is spiritual. So unless we're absorbed in the spiritual energy, we won't be happy, and we can eternally take shelter of the spiritual energy. So with regards to the Tatastha idea, how I see it is, supposing we did start in some Tatastha region or whatever, again, I think it's inconceivable because of the infinities involved, but just to discuss it in language that can be communicated just to get the point across. If that is the case, I think we, to preserve Krishna's mercy and justice, we would have been given a scent of the spiritual world and a scent of the material world. So just like with a smell, actually there's a little analogy to how a Krishna conscious soul, an essence seeker, Saragrahi Vaishnava, they're similar to the honeybee. They'll go into a place full of rubbish and dung, and they will find the one drop of honey and go and land directly on the drop of honey. And similarly, the fly, they could go to a place full of honey and they'll find that one piece of dung and land on that. So, what was I just saying? The Jiva and the Tatastha, I'm using an analogy of smell here. So we could smell something of the spiritual energy, and we could smell something of the material energy, and we chose to move in the direction of the material energy. And so whether we're actually in the spiritual world and tasted it that way and chose to leave, or whether we just had a smell of both energies and chose which direction to move in both cases, the relevant philosophical concerns are satisfied, which is it's my fault and Krishna's full of mercy and compassion and is just. I think I'll keep these short, so I'll end that there, and you can let me know what you think, if there's any topics you want me to cover. Obviously, I'm not a scholar on this particular subject. Prabhupada actually told us not to focus on this subject, so in one sense you could say I'm following Prabhupada's instructions in doing so. All right, yeah, so if these are received well, and hopefully they are, because I think this will be good for my Krishna consciousness, I'll keep putting these out. I was listening this afternoon while I was cleaning the kitchen to Namarasa's podcast, where he had a guest on who was quite scholarly on this subject, and he was discussing whether bhakti is inherent or not. Now, I see these two as different debates, but it seems like they get conflated a lot. So the name of the devotee is Sundar Gopal, Simon Huss. He speaks very well on the subject and has studied a lot. But yeah, it seems I'm a little confused how whether bhakti is inherent of the soul or not seems to come up in the same discussion of whether we fell from the spiritual world or not. But it seems like these things get mixed up. Maybe someone can explain that to me. I might look at interviewing him sometime. Actually, he's pretty nectar. So what he was saying, why this subject is important, specifically with regard to whether bhakti is inherent or not, is because if one view is right, then it means Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Prabhupada spoke something that was apasiddhanta. And that's obviously bad. And then you could say they spoke apasiddhanta, but they did it for a good cause. It's a preaching strategy. But yeah, anyway, long story short, that's why this is debated so much. Some people say the Gaudiya Vaishnava tree after the branch from Bhaktivinoda Thakur is not bona fide because Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought in this idea that bhakti, what's the idea they're saying he brought in? I think they're saying he brought in the idea that bhakti is inherent, which is where Jiva Goswami didn't teach that. Sundar Gopal makes quite a scholarly case that bhakti is inherent according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Jiva Goswami's sources. I don't have an opinion one way or the other on this subject, and I don't really feel that I need to. So yeah, this was just my comments, and I'm used to doing content aimed at outsiders where I don't do the Mangalacharan and prayers and so on, but for content aimed at the devotees, I should probably start doing that. Mangalacharan purifies the atmosphere and we're acknowledging the spiritual master. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai.